Good morning. This is the team from New Mexico Solar Energy Association, along with Brad. He is with the ACE Leadership High School. We are here today to share our thoughts on one of the projects that is going on in this school on solar SunChaser. And this is an educational tool that we plan to take it to the schools all around New Mexico to give instruction on solar technologies. And so like this project started almost like 2 years before with our interns working during the summers. 2 summers interns have worked, the design. And finally we got some funding from the city of Albuquerque as well as the Bernalillo County. And now we are ready to start construction. This construction had just started in this school, ACE Leadership High School, with the students, also with Brad. And we are, this is a nice partnership between NMSEA and also the ACE High School, where our students and the students from this school will be interacting during this process of developing this next maybe 9 months. So this is a unique opportunity that the students from this school is getting, and also eventually when this SunChaser will be ready, the plan is to take it to the schools all around New Mexico. And this SunChaser will have all the gadgets needed to instruct on some of the technologies, which Gabriel, he's the lead for this project. He's go over that in detail. So ever since New Mexico Solar Energy Association has founded in 1972, next year we'll be celebrating our 50th anniversary along with national conference in UNM. So please come, okay, and that will be in June 21st to 24th. But ever since New Mexico Solar Energy Association was founded in 1972, we've been, education outreach is one of the prior commitment that we made in our bylaws. So ever since we've been going to schools, delivering lectures on solar technologies, giving webinars, giving workshops, and so we are very, very visible. And we had a SunChaser which was built almost like 35 years ago, and that is right now is almost like obsolete. So we are going to a new SunChaser. So this is the SunChaser that you will be making. That's a SunChaser 2k20. That means we started in last year, so it is called 2k20. So this is a new SunChaser. It will have all the gadgets, as almost like this is a replica of a house. Supposing if you have a house with a scaled down house, whatever your electronics or whatever gadgets that you have in your house, we are going to replicate that in that house, and also we'll try to power them with some of the renewable energy sources. That is what we'll be demonstrating in that SunChaser trailer. With that, I give it to Gabriel, and Gabriel will take from here.
Sure. Okay, so as Dr. Ghosh alluded to, I was the one who 2 summers ago, Dr. Ghosh put me in charge of the SunChaser project. So I took it from him and started coming up with the design with the help of some other interns, 2 of which are here, Frank Maldonado and Yazbeth. And this last summer they were here to help me with finalizing the design of the SunChaser. So I'll talk a bit about that, and then we'll also talk about how we handed it off to Brad and Ace High School and how they're actually going to be making it. So that's what we'll talk about. So based off of what Dr. Ghosh said, the SunChaser is an educational tool, a mobile educational tool specifically. It's built off of a trailer, meant to be a scaled down home so that we can drive it to different schools and different places across New Mexico and the US, so we can display a variety of renewable energy methods, which you can see in the next section. So this here is a rendering of the solid model, is what we call it, that I made on the computer to show the design that we were trying to make. And then here in a bit you'll see the physical mock-up that ACE has been making. So in terms of renewable energy concepts, there's a variety, but what's most prevalent for for New Mexico really, and what we have over many states, is that we have an abundance of sunlight. So one of the main things we're focusing on is active and passive solar energy. Active being things like your photovoltaics, your solar panels, and your battery systems, where you're actively generating electricity. I'll talk about more of that in a moment. And then passive solar architectures, where you utilize things like awnings and windows to allow sunlight in or block it from being inside the structure to heat or cool your building. So I'll talk about that here in a bit. In terms of the SunChaser itself, we designed it in a manner of having a variety of subsystems is how we looked at it. We called them subsystems. So first there was the trailer platform, and that's what we're actually building off of. We could build from scratch or we could start with a box trailer. I'll talk about all these in further detail in a moment. Second is insulation. That's one of those things that's forgotten very often in renewable energy things, because it's easy to forget that you can generate all this electricity, but if you don't have good insulation, it all goes out the walls, out the doors, out the roof. So it doesn't help much. Then there's the Awning Subsystem, which is part of that passive solar architecture. Photovoltaics I discussed, batteries, that's active solar, air conditioning, waters. Air conditioning, that's one of the major draws for homes is the air conditioning always takes the most power usage. So we had to include that for a scale model. Then we have a very interesting water system that I'll go into some detail with. And lastly, a monitoring system for effectively making the whole SunChaser a smart system. So it'll be very interesting. We'll talk about that next, or here momentarily. So in terms of the platform, and you'll see more of this when we go outside with ACE, is that we started off with a flatbed trailer and essentially decided that we will build an enclosure off of that, because starting with a box trailer would be a bit hard to adapt in some ways. So you can see here the steel subframe we designed, as well as this view of the inside of the trailer, where you can see some of the wood framing we have there as well for the walls. Very similar to a house is how we designed it. Of course, on a much smaller scale, but that's essentially what we have. And then you can see the interior, and it's meant to be just like a home. We have our sink and our air conditioning, and then TV, and we'll have other appliances not shown because I didn't model everything, but that's most of it. So the trailer was, of course, the starting point, so we had to get a good trailer. We were stuck with having to work on what we could physically pull. The old SunChaser was unbalanced and heavy, so hardly any vehicles outside of like a 1-ton truck could pull it. So this is meant to be much lighter and easier, so that easier to pull to the point that you could pull it with a Highlander if need be. It shouldn't be much of an issue. Next, Frank will talk about insulation. This was one of the subsystems he was finalizing in his time this summer.
So as Gabriel mentioned, insulation is actually one of the most important parts of the SunChaser, especially because these walls are only 1.5 inches thick, and because of that thickness, it allows for more heat transfer through conduction. And so for this wall thickness, we need about a R7 to R9 insulation value. And foam board is actually perfect for that because there's those R values and those thickness. And there's also a few more considerations we have to make. Is that the outside of the SunChaser will be aluminum, which is highly conductive, about 200 watts per meter Kelvin. So that will be generating a lot of heat in the cold and in the heat. And also, the interior of the SunChaser is plywood, and that is also, I guess you could consider it a insulator, as it has a conductive value of 0.12 watts per meter Kelvin. Next slide. Okay. Yeah, and as Gabriel mentioned, we will have these deployable awnings, and these are not only for shade, but also they will hold some solar panels. So this front awning will actually hold 2 solar panels, and the back one will hold 1 solar panel. And these will be completely controlled by linear actuators, so their position can be completely controlled. And the smart systems that Beth is working on will help track the sun so that the solar panels are in the required position for maximum production of power. Next slide. Then a little bit more specific into the awning frames. This is the larger awning on the side of the door. It is made by 1 inch by 1 inch by 14 gauge, which is 83 thousandths of an inch steel. And so one of the design considerations we wanted to make is that we wanted to include a factor of safety of 1.5. And this awning should hold about 120 pounds with a factor of safety that is 180 pounds. And that is what I have modeled here. And so if you see the maximum displacement at the edge here is about 1 inch, which is relatively small, and that there's also no yielding. You'll notice that there is a little bit of yellow, but it is mostly blue, signifying that there is no yielding at all, that this frame should work perfectly under the loads. Then here we have the left side awning, and this one will actually hold one solar panel, which is about 60 pounds. So with the factor of safety, it'll be around 90 pounds. And so here we see a similar displacement at the edge of the awning frame, but this time it's around half. It's about half an inch. And once again, there is no yielding. It's a relatively cool plot here, and it should be able to sustain that load. But now Gabriel's up next.
So with that, as Frank alluded to, we have designed the SunChaser from the ground up to be able to fit all these solar panels and to do so in as efficient of a manner as we can. It's something that is beneficial for houses, but sometimes if you're not building your house completely, it'll be hard to get that many solar panels. But what we wanted to do was kind of show the best we could possibly do in that respect. So you can see here the SunChaser model has the awnings folded down. So the awnings are great, and I'll talk about that here actually. Where when they're folded down, they act to, well, that's when we're in travel mode or storage mode for the trailer, for the SunChaser. And then when it's time we take it to, say, a school to present, we'll hit a button, as Frank alluded to, and the awnings will pop up with the linear actuators. Or if we hit a different button, we'll start the sun tracking mode, as Frank talked about, where the awnings that are on the trailer will be able to track the sun. And Yasmith will go into that momentarily. That's what she's been working on. Overall, photovoltaic systems they've been fairly simple for the last 30, 40 years. Generally, you have what's called your photovoltaics panel, which is your solar panel, as everyone knows it by. And that is what takes the sunlight and makes it into electricity for us. That goes through what's generally called a charge controller. It basically takes that electrical output from the panels and makes it something that the battery system can digest more easily. So that electricity goes to the charge controller, to your battery bank, and your battery bank is where you hold all your energy. So the battery bank is what we plug everything into. And we say you can attach an inverter, because the battery bank is in DC power, and if you need AC like your house, then you need an inverter to convert that to ACs. So that's about what we have for that. In terms of the water system, this is one of my favorite systems actually, because it's one of the most involved, I suppose. Essentially what we're having is we have this panel up here, which is meant to represent a solar water heater. So we have a way to heat water and have hot water on board the SunChaser. That, and actually we have a diagram of the general plumbing flow chart that explains it a bit better than I might be able to. But essentially what we're doing is, dependent on the temperature outside, we want to be able to use that hot water to also heat or not heat the inside of the trailer. So we have a radiant floor system that will be doing that. So dependent on the temperature, also part of the smart subsystems, yes, what we'll talk about, is we'll be able to divert water to be stored either in the exterior storage tanks or in the radiant floors. Then when it comes time to actually using that water for washing your hands or whatever it may be, it'll go towards the sink and you can use that hot water. So that's a very interesting system. That leads me into what Yasmin can talk about.
Yes, so my name is Yasbeth, and as Gabriel has mentioned prior in the presentation, the goal is to make the SunChaser a smart system. we have recently started working on actually creating these subsystems, and we have broken it down into 3 main groups for now. The first being the awnings, which is coding and making a small-scale model of the linear actuators that are going to be moving the awnings to whatever position we'd like, whether we want it to be completely flat down for travel mode, maybe 45 degrees or 90 degrees up. We also have the solar tracking group, which is the portion where the solar panels will adjust to whatever angle that the sun is hitting it the most. That way it can convert the most energy and bring it into the SunChaser to use for other purposes. And then the last subsystem that we're going to work on for now is the cooling and heating system, which Gabriel just finished talking about. The main goal for now is to create small-scale models, work on the coding, and make sure it's working. That way, when it comes time to transition into actually implementing these subsystems into the SunChaser, it's just a matter of editing the coding here and there, and that way we can troubleshoot everything and make sure it works. Slide.
So this is the point where we got to last summer, roughly, where basically we had this concept developed, and then we were ready and we handed it off to Brad, but it wasn't quite perfect, so Brad at Ace High School is going to kind of discuss their trials and tribulations of getting this.
Here, this is Ace Leadership High School. My name's Brad Humble. These are some of the senior class of 2022. These students are the people who are actually responsible for building this trailer. We appreciate this type of collaboration because doing a real world project changes greatly the buy-in of everyone. These students are creating something that when they're done, they can be proud of the work they put into it, and it's going to last for quite a while. That's an important exercise, and we strive for this kind of collaboration. The overall picture, we were given all of the engineers' specs, ideas, and designs, and we had to make that into a real world object. We're trying to teach construction. That's what we're doing here. These students at the beginning had to first learn how to interpret this information. We had an architect who's part of the school this year actually create a 2-dimensional blueprint because we have 3-dimensional designs come to us, but you can't build off that. Also, they're learning. How do we read a tape measure? How do we physically do the planning and thinking ahead of time? And now they're actually getting to where they're physically welding this stuff. Right now you see a wooden mock-up. I want one of our students, Samuel, to talk about that. Why are we doing this?
Hello, my name is Samuel Cabrera. I'm here. I'm a student at Ace Leadership, and this is a mock-up of the NMSEA trailer, our solar energy trailer. And we did a mock-up because it helps us practice for our measurements, help us practice our building, and help us practice with the solar energy and how it's gonna look. And also, we have like a couple of reasons to help the trailer be stable, and some of our pipes would twist so it won't break. And it took us about a week, 2 weeks to make this mock-up, to put our materials and to put our cut list together. And we had a few changes in our cut list because of the windows and because the different sizes of wall, wasn't it? And
The trailer wasn't the same size as
yeah, and the trailer was at the same size as the blueprint, so we had to make it a little bit more short. And
That's good. I'm going to ask Enrique. Thank you, Sam. I appreciate that. Enrique, I'd like you to address one question. What has been your biggest challenge with working on this?
My name is Enrique Sanchez, and the biggest challenge on working this project is actually trying to get it not over a 1/16 of an inch in the project. Since we can't make it over measured, or sorry, the measurement's over, so it can actually fit in the trailer. and that's the biggest challenge I had in this entire trailer.
Working with the precision required and the accuracy.
Yes.
Now I would like one more student to talk about what has been the funnest part of this. Betty, will you?
For me,
Yeah, come up here.
my name is Betty Perez. For me, the funnest part was learning, like the experience. I've never really worked with tools, so I've learned how to read a tape measure. I didn't know how to do that before. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, honestly, I think one of the coolest things about this is that even in high school, we're learning how to actually weld. Well, my grandpa actually tried to teach me this stuff when I was only 7, but I was too scared because all the lights and all the sound. It was scary at first, but now that I'm 17, 10 years older, it's much better because, and not to mention that I'm actually learning it from people I know I can trust. Working on something that actually matters. Because that really just makes an impact on exactly how we're doing it. Because it actually matters. It actually matters. And we'll actually want to get with it.
Thank you, Ed. So once again, this is phase 1. This entire project will take the entire school year. Phase 1 is the structural elements. Phase 2 is closing it in, getting the insulation in. Phase 3 is installing the systems. The students will do all of these.
Over the summer, I worked on the curriculum closely with other educators, and we ended up breaking down the curriculum into 3 main parts. And the purpose for this is for whenever it comes time to take the SunChaser to schools and classes for students to learn about. The 3 main groups that we broke it down into is elementary, middle school, and high school. And each class will have a lesson accommodated to their certain grade. But every grade will have an objective, which was created from state curriculums. We made sure that we cater to the grades properly and to whatever knowledge the kids will have at the age that we're teaching them at. They will also each have an activity. For example, they will all do a scavenger hunt of relating appliances that they use at home, energies that they see all the time, and things that we can convert into solar energy, things like that. However, it will be a little more advanced as the grades go up. They will also each have questions to take home with them to keep them thinking about solar energy and the effects it has on climate. And then we will also have a discussion portion. And if the time comes that we run out of time and the lesson's already done, but we have maybe a little bit more time to spare, we have interactive videos for them to watch in a TV that the SunChaser will have.
So that's all we have for you. You can find NMSEA as well as ACE High School at these links here. If you have any questions or you want to learn more about the SunChaser, special thanks to Dr. Ghosh, our president of NMSEA, the rest of NMSEA, ACE High School especially, for actually taking on the challenge of building this for us. And all our sponsors. We've been we've been able to work with a bunch of great companies as well as the city and the county of Bernalillo. So it's been great working with these companies and city and county to actually get materials to make this physically and to show off the best that we possibly can. So thank you everyone.